Already in December 1991, Boris Yeltsin talked about a possible NATO accession of Russia. He was convinced that security in Europe is indivisible. The American perspective was a little bit different. Bill Clinton later on talked about Russia being a mess, but on the other hand, he would have been open to a NATO accession of Russia if Russia were to become a democratic state. In the 1990s, democracy was widely seen as a luxury in Russia. Everybody struggled for survival. We had hyperinflation, and democracy was a nice to have. At the same time, the country was not very stable. Oligarchs took over. The Russian president Boris Yeltsin seemed to be quite a weak figure. His health was deteriorating. And when Vladimir Putin came to power in the year 2000, everybody was happy that finally a strong leader stabilized the very fragile situation in the country. The population in Russia can be divided into three parts. We have the population in the two capital cities, Moscow and Petersburg. They are basically very critical of the Kremlin and Vladimir Putin, and the Kremlin is happy if these people are more or less quiet. Then we have a second Russia. This is the population of the remaining 12 cities with a population over a million. The situation there is rather unstable, but of course the Kremlin still wants to keep these people on board. And finally, of course, we have rural Russia, and this is basically the main resource of power when it comes to the support of the Russian population for the Kremlin. Of course, there are domestic reasons for the current crisis. Russia and the Kremlin need resources of power. Until 2011, the main resource of power were elections. And, of course, the economic situation. Russia in the early 2000s had a very favorable situation economically. Everything changed by the winter of 2012 when people took to the streets because they were not happy with the only choice for the new president when it became clear that President Medvedev would step back and only Vladimir Putin would be a candidate for the Russian presidency. Ever since, the social contract in Russia has changed and imperial ambitions have come to the forefront of the political discussion. In a certain way, these imperial ambitions are also important for the Russian population. But I think we should not mix up the current situation with the situation back in 2014, when Russia annexed the Crimea. And at that time, the annexation of Crimea was extremely popular in the Russian population because there was a widespread feeling that Crimea has been Russian for centuries, and this is a justified return of a territory that had belonged to Russia for a very long time. Now, military aggression against Ukraine would be considerably less popular in the Russian population, because in Russia, of course, there is a widespread feeling that Russia and Ukraine are brother nations. And if you look into Russian family histories, you will find a Ukrainian babushka in almost every family. What we see in this conflict is exactly what the Russian president wanted. We see pilgrimages of leading Western politicians to Moscow. We see video interviews between the American president and the Russian president. So I would say in a first step, the results of this military threat towards Ukraine are very successful. Russia is back as a global player. Vladimir Putin has not forgotten the insult that was made by President Obama. Obama said that Russia is just a local power in Eastern Europe. And I think what we see today is that Putin plays with the Western fear of war, and at the same time demonstrates that Russia is very serious about the possibility of a war.